Hey, this is Notser, and today we're taking a look at a 8.0 public test server phase 2 testing example. We're in the Montana, and this is a game where I have zero investment in anti-air. I don't have any commander skills, manual AA, advanced firing training, or basic firing training. I'm not using extensive modules. The only thing I'm really making use of is the fighter, and that's partially because it should end up being one of the best defensive tools that a battleship has in 8.0. And, you could use a scout aircraft, absolutely. And the scout aircraft is really good for looking around islands. But I have found that with the carriers, it's very hard to defend or position yourself defensively around an island stationary. That's going to be really punished. So that whole benefit to always looking over an island, especially for something like the Montana that has terrible gun velocity, literally the only reason you would have Scout is for the ability to look over an island for the Montana. Since that's gone, the catapult fighter, which is transforming into fighters, is the most beneficial, I think. But beyond that, there's no other investment in defense. I'm not going to make use of the sector system at all, and in fact, I'm going to critique the commander skills that do exist, but aren't being used, and sharing my thoughts on just how it feels to actually use them, and my disappointment in the system itself. So, obviously, active maneuvering and scrambling fighters when a dedicated drop is occurring. That's what is going to happen here. But that's all that's going to happen. I'm not going to use my cursor to select the primary target because I can't. That's gone. I'm left with just feeling like, he's attacking whether I want him to or not. I should just do my best to mitigate it and attack other targets to take away his teammates that provide so much. And in actuality, the best defense for air is just to group up. It's far better than investing points in anti-air. And, that's appropriate, I guess, because in real life, that was the most effective strategy for air defense. But in a game that has commander skills, it needs to be impactful, otherwise it's just going to be overlooked for more impactful skills. Concealment Expert wasn't taken because it wasn't impactful. It's the most impactful skill, so it's always taken. And I expect the same when 8.0 drops if there's no adjustments to these skills. Now, I can complain, I can talk about, oh, it feels bad, but I want to try and offer some solutions to these problems. So, first skill that I just feel is so terrible is the manual AA skill. Prior to 8.0, manual AA doubled the 85mm and higher damage output for AA. And this was incredibly impactful. Some ships, it doubled the DPS that you provided. That is an incredibly important skill. And that skill was 4 points. And all you had to do is select the aircraft squadron that you wanted to do damage to manually. Which, you press Control and you easily select. So from that standpoint, it was a beautiful skill. It was always worth it, and the player always had a way of using it. With the manual AA skill in 8.0, it's not. So what the manual AA skill has done is it's replaced that doubling of long-range DPS, and instead it enhances the sectors and the sector switching mechanic. And that's great. I definitely want the sector switching. I feel like it's required. It should be baked in my opinion. But the damage increase is small, and unfortunately, it takes just as much as it increases from one side of the ship as it does from buffing that other. So, in actual practice, you have to be perfect with your sector switching. This has to be like the most skillful play of any player that I've ever seen from an AA system so far in the game, previously and otherwise, to get the most benefit from it, to get any benefit from it. If I don't use the sectors, I don't benefit from manual AA at all. Literally at all. There's no point in the skill. It doesn't enhance the base sector DPS. Not at all. It only enhances the switched DPS. That sounds like a terrible skill when it requires that I have to make use of it to get any benefit whatsoever out of it. And when I make use of it, the system itself is unrecognizable in its effectiveness. Because the percentages are just so skewed. Why does it take just as much as it enhances? Shouldn't it enhance and then enhance the base, the side of the ship that reduces its effectiveness, so the skill itself is always useful? It doesn't do that. Why? Why doesn't it do that, Wargaming? Why can't I just always have benefit from a 4-point skill? That's the most confusing skill of all of them, honestly, is the manual AA decision. It feels bad. It is bad. It just is a horrible, horrible direction for that skill. It doesn't offer or encourage any more manual control, because what it's offering is a convoluted, clunky system at this point. Sectors are just not there, and they're not good. On top of that, we have advanced firing training. And advanced firing training used to extend the range of your AA, along with secondaries and small caliber main battery. It still does the secondaries, and it still does the small caliber main battery, but it doesn't enhance the range of AA any longer. It merely enhances the damage output of flak burst, and flak burst only. So flak burst is basically up to the carrier whether he'll take it or not. It's really just a skill that can be completely avoided. And if a skill is completely avoidable, I'm not going to be happy spending 4 points on it. And that's what it feels like when I'm playing against a good player. I might as well not have advanced firing training, because they're not going to notice it anyway. I should rather enhance other parts of my ship, maybe my ability to fend off fire, or Superintendent get another charge of not only heal, but also the fighter itself. If I'm not already doing that, I should be doing that. But, I mean, come on. Advanced fire training shouldn't feel this useless, and it does. Enhancing flak, which is an avoidable skill, is not a appropriate 4-point. Probably the most beneficial basic firing training, which improves the DPS of your small caliber, the reload, secondaries. Instead of improving the AA DPS, which it used to, it only improves the continuous damage output. And continuous damage output might as well not even be there. It's such a tiny number. Over an attack, you might do maybe 1,000 damage to the entire aircraft hit point. Aircraft with 35,000 health, doing 1,000 isn't really that relevant. And you can easily mitigate it by returning the aircraft as if the damage wasn't sustained at all. That's pretty disappointing. So just across the board, these commander skills are not adequate in their impact. They are such a small portion of the AA game compared to what they used to be. And that's really disappointing. So obviously, these skills aren't adequate. What can we do to enhance the skills, to make them as valuable as they once were? Well, one of the things that I would really like to see is the manual AA always having a benefit. And I've talked about this before, but just make the percentages never drop. That single change would completely revolutionize the skill. If manual AA protected the backside of my ship from reduction, and maybe it isn't perfect, maybe it still reduces its effectiveness to 80% or something like that. 80%, and then having my primary be a fully enhanced sector side, that would be great. That would be 4 points well worth it, because you always would benefit from it, and it would enhance a system that honestly needs to be enhanced to really feel adequate. I would love for that to be the focus of the sector. Now, you could decide to bake or not bake in the faster sector switching, but we need to have some more protection for the backside of sectors. It shouldn't be so punishing that if you miss the window by a second, it's done. It's over. It's irrelevant. You've thrown away all of the goodwill that you've done for the entire game in that single attacking window. They were completely free reign to damage you and everyone around you. Make it protect that sector. Make it always have an enhancement. Make it always have a benefit. It always should be good, and it should encourage sector usage. So either protect 100% the backside to keep it 100%, or only reduce the output slightly and keep that faster sector switching because it needs it. Sectors need to be more incorporated in my play, and notice I haven't used it once, and honestly, it's felt great. Haven't had to worry about it at all because it's just a very convoluted system right now. Another skill, Advanced Firing Training, it enhances the flak DPS. Now that's not very sexy because flak basically is avoidable, and when it's not avoidable, it already does basically one-shot potential. It's just so alpha bursty. It is so punishing that players are encouraged to never, ever, ever get close to the flak. Now I know that's appropriate for most, but flak should still be a part of the system, the damage it does. I would love to see Advanced Firing Training maybe enhance the size of flak burst. It may be subtle or small, or even provide a random larger flak burst every so often in the repertoire. You know, it modifies a single flak burst to have more size. Something along those lines so it feels unique. It feels different and appropriate, and it feels like the 4 points for Advanced Firing Training is worth it versus manual AA. They have to do something different. And Wargaming is not going to give us a range increase. That's just not happening, people. And I know that's disappointing, but it needs to be as impactful as a range increase. And maybe we can get a flak range increase, you know, the air burst size itself. And it can be an appropriate increase where it's noticeable, but it's not overpowered. I think that would feel a lot better for Advanced Firing Training. And then the other skill, Basic Firing Training, instead of, you know, enhancing your continuous damage output, why not just enhance the DPS of AA? Why does it have to have a split component? I don't really feel like continuous is good enough. And I get that continuous is some unavoidable damage, but Basic Firing Training, it probably does the most that you'll notice, but it does the least overall because continuous is just not impactful. And maybe if they improve continuous to be more impactful, I would notice the skill more. That might be adequate enough to transform it into something that is always useful. It still has the secondary and the main battery reload improvement for the small caliber, but I just was hoping that these skills would actually be recognizable in my play when using or equipping them. It's just not there, and I want these skills to have a real value that players feel like it's worth the investment in, and they're not there yet. I think Wargaming went a little too conservative with the impact of these skills, and it shows. They're just not as impactful as fire prevention, radiolocation, concealment, survivability expert, demolition expert, superintendent. You know, all these skills, they are jumping off of the commander skill tree as value, and the updated versions of Advanced Firing Training, Basic Firing Training, and Manual AA, honestly, they don't. They don't. And in practice, they aren't. And I hope that Wargaming can take the time that they have, the little time that they have, and either flesh it out, adjust it slightly, or do something appropriate. Just say, you know what? If we don't get commander skills right, we are willing to provide more resets until we do. That would be enough, I feel, to alleviate any concerns. But I don't know that they're willing to do that just yet. Because honestly, I don't think they want to commit that much at this stage. They still don't know exactly where the system is going to exist from a power level standpoint. Part of the reason is bots. Bots are terrible for this. But I'm not a bot. The aircraft carrier is not a bot. And I felt pretty safe, honestly. And I didn't really do anything from an anti-air role. All I did is call on a fighter every once in a while and maneuver just as I always would. That's pretty simple. That's not really giving me the same dynamic feel that the carrier is getting from the rework. It's no comparison. The carrier is absolutely benefiting more from it. So yeah, leave in the comments your thoughts on these skills. You maybe have played through them. I really want to hear all of your feedback on the AA-centered improvements that can be made to ships. Do you feel like the modules are appropriate? I certainly feel like the slot 3 module that adds 2 flak bursts is a great skill for mid to early late tier. But once you get to late tier, you're shooting up like 13, 14 flak, and it's already just full of flak. Is 1 or 2 really as noticeable at tier 8, 9, and 10 as it is at tier 5, 6, and 7? No. So the skill is scaling weirdly. It's scaling in the reverse. The slot 6, it provides continuous and burst DPS increase, so it's just a DPS increase module, which is nice. It's always going to be beneficial, but I don't know that I would take it over other skills. Reload, range, or otherwise. So I just really want to hear your thoughts on everything that's detailed in this video. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you next time.